Hi there. We are going to go through the most bearish 5 projects according to CoinMarketCap crypto community sentiment in this video. And as usual, I'll use the same methodology to talk about these projects, and these are not financial advice. And let's start with the very first one. We'll first go through CHZ, Hype, and then we'll get on to the other 3, including Canton, MYX Finance, and Official Trump. So starting with CHZ. CHZ has gone through quite a bit of paper hands, diamond hands checkout tests, and I will consider the past 6 weeks a run towards something we call in Wyckoff the sign of strength, meaning price advancement along with volume. So sometimes we get 1 or 2 candlesticks with crazy volume. Sometimes it just looks like this. Consecutive candlesticks with above average volume. Alright, so this is the case for CHZ. What's next? It can still come down for more tests like what it is doing right now. But there are 2 different cases, whether this is really bearish or not. Alright, sometimes after sign of strength, it comes down for something we call a spring. The spring can go way deeper than the previous test. Alright, these tests, these levels over here, the spring can go even deeper. Now that's one of the scenario, but the spring doesn't necessarily happen all the time. Alright, what's more common would be a bit of retracement towards the previous support. In this case, the red key level of 0.36. You see, the selling climax was there. This has been the support around this period. What we call that is like the backup, and then last point of support eventually when it starts to build up towards the distribution cycle. Alright, so look at what happened over here. After the sign of strength, it came down a little, found support along the key level, and then did a bit of sideways trading, and eventually gets to the new distribution cycle. Alright. However, I do want to mention one more thing. This sounds like the end of accumulation. Sometimes it's just not the case. There are times that we see multiple sign of strength after sign of strength. Alright, so just to get you prepared, if it doesn't happen, if it doesn't go towards the new distribution cycle, it's not the first time it doesn't do it that way. You can see in some charts, during the accumulation cycle, there were like 3-4 sign of strengths before it really actually goes to the distribution cycle. It depends on timing, the capital in the market, all that, right? It's not just about reading charts. You have to understand what's going on in the macro environment as well. So when we get to the daily chart, we already talked about that CHZ has broken outside of the sideways trend. This stayed around December 30th, that the uptrend line currently, the price is still finding support around. Alright, it's still getting support along this line. So we talk about the 23rd of Jan, if the price continues, or the bulls and bears continue to fight along this line, we're assuming the bulls successfully defend this line. When we get closer to this date, we'll get a confirmation eventually. The confirmation means whether this uptrend is going to continue. Either it's going to go above the orange key level, that's around 5 cents 40, or is it going to break this support line and finish the uptrend. Alright, and to tie this back to the big picture, like what I said in the beginning, after sign of strength, it can still come back. Alright, so when you look at the daily chart, that's why it can still break below this dash line and then trade sideways before it goes further up. Okay, so don't just look at what it's doing right now. Think about what potentially can happen, and then set your stop loss always. Like I always remember our community, yeah, it's going to disclose where our positions are, but That's something to protect your capital as well as the profit that you're going to make, right? If you enter somewhere around here and you have been, keep pushing your stop loss out, when it drop like what it's doing this week, it may force you to take profit, and that's fine. Rather than it goes down even further and then you like regret not taking profit earlier. And then next is hype. For hype, we talk about the panic over stage have probably surfaced during mid-December into the week of Christmas. And then it's going to the automatic rally stage where the bulls are trying to set the accumulation cycle trading range top. Alright, currently it's trying to challenge the light blue key level of $28.25. And if we go to the daily chart, let's get rid of these old text that those were experimental. It's still within the bigger downtrend. Alright, this light blue box, let's extend this even further because I want to show you that the trend change confirmation dates, when they may come. So this points to somewhere near the end of Jan. It doesn't mean the bulls and the bears are going to wait till that date. Sometimes they're going to move quicker. It's just an indication to us that we're getting close to that point. Alright, certainly the price has been trading in the past 4 days, back to the stronger half of the channel. You see the center line, this is the stronger half. The volume is definitely supporting. Yesterday was a white candle, but then the candlestick body is pretty short and there were wicks on both the head and tail. So even the volume is high, I would consider it's just an exchange of stock between the bulls and the bears, and it's not something particularly bad because today we get quite a bit of buying as well with a decent volume, not crazily high but still good. It's around this average, higher than the low point. So when the trading gets closer and closer and maybe break above the light blue key level, it's going to get to the point where the trend change confirmation opportunity comes to confirm whether hype is actually getting outside of the downtrend, or is it going to come back down, get rejection from the channel ceiling, and then continues to wait for another opportunity. If it comes back down to the green key level for support, $23.85, let's pull this over. What date this cross is pointing to, this triangle is pointing to, it's somewhere around mid-February. Alright, so that's assuming it gets rejected from the first occasion and come back down. Then we get a second chance whether it's going to go up or continue with the trend. Alright, so that's for hype. And next we've got 3 others that I haven't charted before. The very first one is Canton. So let's get to Canton, and let's use the very first one and start with the weekly. Obviously, it's a very young coin with very little history, so I'm going to make some wild guess here. Alright, these are subject to severe changes later on, when we get to see more of the price actions. But let's make a bold assumption here. Yeah, it can be wrong, but let's make some assumptions. Let's guess what's going on. So I'm going to borrow these texts and go back to Canton. So assuming, alright, it's really bearish for Canton. Assuming the panic over period was over there, alright, around beginning of December last year. And that is setting an automatic rally, trading range top for the accumulation cycle. Let's assume that's what it is. Looking at the volume, it was pretty high actually last week, but like I said, is the bulls and the bears changing hands over here. There was quite a bit of selling from the top, and this week, even continuing the sell with the selling, but there's still 5 days and 4 hours left for this week, so it's not set in stone yet. So this line, this red line over here, 0.036, when we get to the daily chart, I'll tell you what it is. So I was basically getting reference from this point that if this is really the selling climax, I'm trying to track this. This is more like a temporary line. That, let's say that's a level around 60 cents. Sorry, not 60 cents, 6 cents. Alright, that's the level set by the selling climax. Let's assume that's the case. What we have, above are these lines. Let's change it to dash lines, because like I said, it's very young coin. It's probably not key levels, but still good enough for us to take reference if it really comes down. All right, so you see currently there are definitely more these intermediate levels. So let's draw all these for you. So why the price is stopping over here? You see this wick has this level, and the bulls push it back up. This 13 cents level was set around here, around November last year. Okay, but it's not a very strong level. So the price, if it comes further down, don't be surprised. It's going to go all the way through. This may provide the second level support, 11 cents 50. But then, not until it gets to this point, around 10 cents, 9 cent 80, somewhere around there. Alright, then this one is the relatively stronger one compared to the other two. Alright, and then eventually there's one more over here before it comes down to challenge the red key level. Alright, if it really comes down from our assumption of an automatic rally, because if this is really an accumulation cycle, what comes after the bulls set the trading range top? That means this is the top, this is the bottom, and there will be sideways trading. Okay, that's the assumption. So assume there will be more tests. For what? What kind of tests are these? These are paper hands, diamond hands test. Are people going to stay, or are they just in for short term? That's what it is. Then after Canton, we've got MYX Finance. Let's see. Let's copy all these before we move on, just in case MYX is in similar situation. MYX Finance, again, over here, very young coin. Quite different picture, as you can see, compared to Canton. Instead of like having a clear down leg, it's more like mild downward price action and then gone up. So again, assuming they are going through the same accumulation cycle, this is a big if. Alright, even bigger if, because there's basically only 3 months of data that we are talking about. Assuming that's setting the automatic rally, the trading range top. Okay, and more tests will come in. So that's the backdrop, the big picture. Let's get to the daily and see what we get. Alright, assuming that's where the selling climax is. Very first line. Where do we get or draw the second line then? Okay, that's $1.9. The volume was good until the point the bears start selling. Alright, very long wicks from the top. It's clearly selling. Even the day when the price went up, you see when it got close to 7.2, that's clearly being sold from that point until it reaches $6. And then, obviously, subsequently now it's getting somewhere around 4.8. So it's not a surprise to you, right? If it is really accumulation, it's expected that it comes down. Just that, let's draw a couple of more lines to see where are the potential levels that the price may find support. Alright, I've drawn these two additional lines. The very first one around 3.9, the second one 3.2, and eventually, well, there's another one over here before it gets to the selling climax level. That's 2.6 roughly, 2.59, 2.6, and eventually 1.9. So the subsequent tests may come down, find support from one of these levels, trade sideways, and then go back up to show something we call sign of strength. Alright, it's too early to tell. It may take a week or two for that to happen. So after MYX, we've got official Trump. Let's see, what does it look like? Official Trump, let's take this Coinbase over here. Alright, it's not having the rebound yet. However, this is the tricky part. Do we treat this as the selling climax and then the automatic rally? Again, big assumption, not much history to take reference. Less than a year. Usually consider 2 years and below for young baby coins. That it's very risky to make any assumptions. But for the sake of trying, let's assume that was actually the panic over stage. People stopped crazily selling, but whales have already gone in quite a bit, and then there was the automatic rally just to get back to more tests. Alright, and it definitely goes deeper than the selling climax. Alright, I did say subsequent tests is very common for the price to come lower than that. This over here during end of October last year, there was quite a bit of activities, quite a bit of entry over there. Just that there was also similar buying and selling between the bulls and the bears. That's why the volume was high, the price spread wasn't really. And then, what's after? What we are hoping to see is for something we call a sign of strength. Meaning, some volume bars like this, maybe a single one or consecutive shorter ones, or something huge like the automatic rally stage during April. That's something we call advancement with volume, so white candlesticks with long volume bars. We haven't seen that yet. That's what we hope to see. When we get to the daily, so what's happening right now? Back in October 10th, the tariff announcement date was actually the point where this current price is trying to test. But the past couple of days, definitely the bulls have done a great job in defending that level. Right? It did not go all the way to the October 10th level. That was around $4.58. They stopped somewhere around 4.66. If we continue to draw these lines, looking at the candlesticks heads and tails, this one around $5, again a psychological level for a lot of people, 4.98 or $5, may be the support when it comes down. Of course, like we discussed, for tests, they can go very deep, and don't be surprised if it comes down to once again test the October 10th level. Not that I expect that to be a likely case, it may happen. So if we say, if it is not as bearish as people think in CoinMarketCap, like they voted, is it going to come back to show us a sign of strength? Yes, that may be the case. And however, if the price really comes up to this level over here, where the automatic rally top, set where it's at the top, let's assume it's going to come back to challenge this level. Don't think it is going to go up back to where it was immediately. That's not always the case. All right, expect some backtracking or retracement from the $15.50 level. It may come to challenge this level again, but it's very common for it to come back down or even deeper. All right, so there are definitely multiple reference levels when we look at the bigger picture. While it seems like the people are thinking this is bearish, just that the past few days is showing us actually it's probably doing a turn over here. Just that how sustainable that is to come back to challenge the 8.54 level, that's the unknown. At this point, why it's got rejected, if I push, borrow this line and drag it up, there is a resistance level over here at $5.65. Look at what happened over here, November 21st, as well as these activities. That's why this is a resistance level. It was set by the previous trading activities along this line. What if the bulls successfully push above this level? Where is the next one? Let's look at the candlesticks. Okay, somewhere around this point, around $6.2. All right, after the current one at around 5.65. Well, even further, if you ask, let's draw a couple of more. That's around, well, looking at these, there is actually one more in here, around 6.86, before it gets to this point at around 7.38 or $7.4. It's not price point. These levels are ranges, okay? Even though it's just a line, a thin line, it's ranges, because unless it's very precisely calculated and being controlled by a single party with that much power, otherwise it will never end exactly the same. Okay, there are many parties playing this game, so don't assume this is like a single price point. And eventually after the 7.4, we get somewhere near $8. Again, another psychological level. So many levels for Trump to get back to challenge this 8.54 level, where the previous this climb tested. All right, just to reiterate here that this assumption of we're in the we're after the selling climax is a big assumption over here, because there's no history, not enough history. This period can just be the very last leg of distribution, because that may be an LPSY. What we're going through now is the real selling climax, because looking at the volume, it gets really low. So this may not even be the testing period. That's what I'm talking about. The selling climax may have happened just in October, and the automatic rally was what happened afterwards, near the end of October. All right, this can be the other picture that I see with this young coin. Okay, so it doesn't change much. What we are hoping to see is still the sign of strength, and during this period there's still the test of paper hands and diamond hands. You're moving these two stages across from that point to here isn't going to change these two facts, that what we are seeing and what we are waiting to see. Okay, so that's the most bearish coins according to the CoinMarketCap community. Thanks for joining me. See you in the subsequent sessions. I'm going to the member sessions now. The members get 48 hours of early access.